Hi, Dan. Welcome to the show. It's so nice to have you here.
Hey Vanessa, how are you?
I'm well. I'm so well, and to say that I am excited about this conversation is an understatement. I mean, it's always exciting to talk with you guys, but I think that, and I know that we talked a little bit about this off air. This is something that is very something I should really pay more attention to, I should say, in my own life and
Mhm.
probably dig a bit deeper. And so
Sure.
I'm really excited to bring this subject matter to our listeners. And I'm just so happy that you're here.
Awesome. Thank you. Pleased to
Yeah.
be here. And
Yeah.
once we're done, once it's published, I'll be sure to share it with my audience as well.
Oh, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
So, speaking of audience, for those of you, or excuse me, for those who are not familiar with you, I would love for you to give our listeners a little bit of a recap of what went on with you and why you are doing this work now. What happened in your earlier years and with your
Mhm.
body and pain and all of that.
Okay. So, um, started out bending over to put on my underwear in my early 30s. And, the typical phrase, my back went out, or I threw my back out. And that started 13 years of on and off, but mostly on chronic back pain, sciatica, a lot of discomfort. Excuse me. A lot of discomfort, a lot of agony. I was the guy in the neighborhood with back pain. Hey, Dan, how's your back? I identified as that, going through the office, would have a long commute, shifting in the car, trying to stay comfortable and, get into the office, shut the door and lay down on the floor in my suit jacket and pants. And um, I found out about Dr. John Sarno. And if anybody in the audience doesn't know who he is, he's a doctor who really discovered the mind-body connection. He actually helped Howard Stern, John Stossel, and some other, very renowned people. But a small, really humble guy who figured out that the brain creates pain and can make it chronic. And he, through his research and through his practice, figured out that most things that are on the MRI, oh, I got a bulging disc, a herniated disc, disc degeneration, spinal stenosis, and 42 other things that you can find just on the spine, let alone the rest of the body. He found that those are innocent bystanders being blamed for the pain, but not the actual cause. The primary reason for that is because there's tons of people with all of those imaging studies that have no pain. So, what Dr. Sarno theorized was that the brain was protecting individuals from their repressed emotions by creating something like pain. That was his original theory. So, and I believe he's correct. I believe that can be one of the reasons that pain starts. Not the only reason, but one of them. And that's led a whole bunch of people down the path of, I got to do all this emotional work. How do I get my repressed emotions out? And we can get into that a little bit more. But my story was 13 years of pain, found out about Dr. Sarno, got better, it came back, got better, it came back, didn't get better yet, and up and down for 13 years. Got very chronic at the end, very high levels. And I eventually was able to accidentally stumble on whatever the right recipe was to teach my brain to turn off the pain. And if you had asked me back then, I'd go, not sure,
Hmm.
really not sure. Did a lot of things right throughout the journey, but not enough. And, I kept my brain perceiving danger. I was the guy with back pain. I was afraid to bend over. I was avoiding things. I would come back from somewhere and I'd lay down for a while. It was just the habitual accommodate your pain, which just kept the brain believing we got a bad back, you know? And, I'd go to do something and my mom said, oh, don't do that. Let Michael get that. Don't hurt your back. And, so there's all of that that just creates this underlying subconscious belief system that goes, I got a bad back. And the brain will keep the alarm going to protect us. Every time I'd bend over, it would hurt. It was a conditioned response. So I finally beat it about 14 years ago, and I've been chronic pain-free ever since. I was fascinated with Sarno ever since I found out about it, and I stayed fascinated. And I found out about Sarno before the internet, so there was no podcasts, YouTubes, Facebooks, Instagrams, none of that stuff existed. There might have been a couple of people helping others, mostly in Sarno's world, you know, and just remained fascinated. And even once I got pain free, I kept my fingers in it and watching and paying attention and learning. Oh, there's a new book about TMS or this mind body concept. Let me go buy that book. And I've got bookshelves full of that stuff. I just never lost my fascination. And I told myself, I'm going to teach this someday. Right? I wanted to write a book. My first draft of my first ebook was 2009. That's how long ago I've wanted to be involved in this. Now, I wasn't even better by then, but you know, or just close to that. But I didn't know what the heck I was talking about. I didn't know how to teach it. So I started doing some one-on-one coaching. Didn't succeed because nobody knew who I was. How am I going to get clients? So about 4.5, almost 5 years ago, somebody gave me the idea of publish content, put it out. A buddy of mine says, do a daily video on Facebook for a week, see what happens. Well, that was nearly 5 years ago, and I haven't missed a day since. So I've put out over 1,750 videos, and I don't know the exact count. It's somewhere in that range, but something ridiculous. And I do anywhere from a, 6 to 12 to 15-minute video, just riffing on certain topics, all surrounding chronic pain, chronic ailments, resolution of it, how to teach your brain that you're actually okay, and what are the foundational things we need to understand in order to get better. And I went from nobody knowing who I was to having over 33,000 subscribers on YouTube globally. I have a group coaching program with over 200 people globally, showing up on Zoom, one or multiple times a week. Um, and what's really, really cool is I kind of feel like I've got the best laboratory in the world to study this stuff because I have an audience that's viewing my videos about 5,000 times a day, 5,000 views a day. And I get a couple hundred comments a day where I get direct feedback from the audience as to that video made sense. That crickets didn't hear much, or feedback that goes, yeah, that video of yours really helped me. And so you do that enough times, you really start to understand what works and what doesn't. And I just kept on refining and honing it down. And whereas 5 years ago, if somebody said, why did you get pain free? Got lucky with the right concepts, but I couldn't have explained it. Now I know that I accidentally, through trial and error, stumbled on many of the things I teach today, but I didn't even know what they were. I didn't know I was doing it. Um, so I've kind of put together a process where, it starts with education, accurate knowledge. Sarno was a big knowledge guy, knowledge therapy.
Yeah, very
He'd
much
bring
so.
people in and he'd put them through 2 lectures and send them on their way. And knowledge therapy reduces the fear enough. And if perceived danger is a problem, safety is a solution. Well, knowledge is a huge component in reducing the fear. So I'm rambling a little bit here, but
That's okay. That's okay. I
it's
love it.
uh, it's been a hell of a journey. People say, well, Dan, you ever get pain? Yeah, short durations. Once in a while, I get a symptom, but because I know what it is, it never throws me. It
Right.
never creates panic or deep fear. And so I go, oh, I know what that is. What's going on in my life? How am I stressed? What is my brain perceiving as dangerous? Okay, got it. Zero fear, zero attention. And I get back to my life. And inevitably, it leaves within 30 minutes to 3 days to a week, never more than a week, which means it never becomes chronic. I've had some neck pain, um, some headaches for a little bit. And I don't just mean like I'm dehydrated today, I have a headache, but like a little bit more. But nothing became chronic
Yeah.
because you don't fuel it with the fear and the doubt. So that's like a real quick summary, but hopefully that helps
Yeah.
understand how I got where I'm at. And oh, by the way, I'm writing a book, so hopefully
Yep.
that'll be out in the next several months. I'll be
Yep.
sure to announce that when it's ready.
Yeah, no, I know. We were just chatting about it, and I love that you are. I have just a couple remarks that I just want to point out really quick. It obviously is true that so many people are brought to their work by their own experiences. I talk
Yes.
about that so much on the show. And
Hmm.
then it's funny because you kept saying that you accidentally stumbled upon it. And I happen to think that it was absolutely no accident at all, right? I mean, this is
Oh,
definitely something that was made for you, meant for you. And the trial was put in your life so that you could then at some point down the line reach all of these people. I mean, you and I have talked a lot over the last 24 hours about this, and the amount of people that have found you is astounding in the last 5 years. And all of these success stories, which we'll talk about, in this show, it's just really wild. And it brings so much hope. And I think that that's, again, the primary reason why I wanted to do this episode with you and why I felt so called to reach out to you, is because of that. And, this is very personal for me as well as, and as
sure.
a bit about my story. And the other thing I wanted to touch on really quick is that, you've done these daily videos, and the consistency that that takes, it parallels the consistency of what it takes to do your work, to do the work that you're sharing with people, right? Because there is this consistency factor of changing the way that we perceive things and this mindset shift. And so I just, that stuck out to me too. It's like you've been so consistent for people, and the whole work is based on consistency, which I just find to be, I don't know, just something that really
Yeah.
stuck out when you were speaking. So I wanted to share that. But and then Sarno, I'm glad that you mentioned that because I know that you're mentioning him, but you've really branched off of his work, which I think is
Yeah.
important.
What I've done is I've taken it a step above, and I don't mean to say I'm smarter, better than Sarno. He's wonderful. He's the original guy. Like I give him all the credit for my recovery and for what I do.
Right.
Right. Zero disrespect. What he determined was the brain perceived the repressed emotions, and he got very psychological in his understanding. He interpreted the repressed emotions as the danger, which created the pain. And so most of the work was geared towards you got to do the emotional work. And there's still many people in this mind body space do the emotional work, whether it be journaling, meditation, breath work, vagal nerve stuff, and amygdala retraining and brain rewiring and all this stuff. But there's a huge focus in this mind body space on the emotional state, and it's not just emotions. Once you've had pain for a little while, it becomes body positions, activities. It becomes just this whole belief system that I got this bad back. It becomes your identity almost.
Absolutely.
So uh, there's many things that can be perceived as dangerous. Heck, I know plenty of clients are like, yeah, I had a really tough call with my sister-in-law, and oh man, my symptoms flared. Was that emotional? Yeah, but it's also life stress, financial stress. Oh, I lost my job. Are emotions involved? Yeah, they tag along with everything, but even body positions, movement, walking, climbing stairs, you name it. Those are all perceived dangers. So I think Sarno's right. The emotions were a perceived danger. So in part of my process, I teach people we don't have to go dig up the old emotions to fix them and find the old traumas. We want to teach our right now brain that emotions are safe now. So if I get angry, I don't need symptoms because my brain has learned through exposure that it's okay to get angry. It's a normal human emotion. It doesn't mean anything about me. See, when I was first looking at this stuff, and evaluating what did it mean if Dan got angry, it meant I'm an angry, jerk like my
Mm-hmm.
dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I vowed as a young kid, I'm never going to be like him. So what did I do with anger? Let it
Repressed.
go.
Yeah.
right? So Sarno is absolutely right. All I'm doing is expanding it a little bit bigger that there's lots of perceived dangers. Now, not all chronic pain or chronic symptoms start with an emotionally chaotic time. What if, I have plenty of examples of people who had a surgery, legitimate, knee surgery, for example. They were terrified of it. They didn't want to get it. They came out. They were freaked out at the level of pain, were convinced that the surgeon botched surgery because it hurt so much. And 3 years later, after six more follow-up visits to different knee doctors, and everybody saying your knee's perfect, there should be no reason for pain. This person with the fear and the attention, the belief that the doctor botched the surgery and therefore screwed up the knee, has chronic pain in the knee. The pain's real, but the brain is just operating on misinformation and fear. So that's another reason how symptoms can become persistent. A belief that I'm injured, a belief that, who knows, there's all sorts of stories surrounding medications and antibiotics and food intolerance and lack of sleep and you name it. But once we have a symptom and we dig into it, we become medicalized.
Mm.
Go to enough doctors that scare the pants off us, we're going to believe everything we've heard. And those are called nocebos. We've all heard of the placebo, which is the belief that this sugar pill is good for me or this treatment is good for me. But there's also a nocebo, which is a doctor going, oh, yeah, don't bend at the waist, bend at the knees. Oh, you should, yeah, stop running. You should never run again. And you'll probably not go to the gym again because that's dangerous. And now we've got these nocebos, which are the opposite of placebo, that just say all those things are dangerous. Well, what does the brain do? It says, oh, crap. Turn on the alarms when we try to do those things. And we can accumulate all sorts of triggers and perceived dangers that people's worlds get smaller and smaller and smaller until they're living in this little tiny box called their bedroom.
Mm.
And so it's all driven by conscious and subconscious fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I'm absolutely fascinated by this stuff, and
I am too. I am too. I
just
really,
fascinated by it.
yeah,
I mean,
it
I
really
can't get
is.
enough of it.
I know. I know. It's well, and the cool part is earlier you said that even though you became pain free, you continually dug into it because of the fascination. And I think that there's something to be said about just the programming that we all sort of fall to through our lives. And I talk about that a lot on the show in general, despite subject matter. But this, I think, is just so important that listeners really understand is that the words that people use to describe their situation, the doctors that use these words or give the diagnosis, they are so beyond powerful. And the
Mhm.
mind, we might not understand how powerful they are because the mind is doing something with those words that we're not conscious of. This is all such a subconscious process. And
Mhm.
so we might say on the surface, oh, it's cool. This doesn't affect me. Yeah, I have this thing, but no, it's not really like dictating my life. But in reality, it is dictating your life. And I think I don't think, I know that that has been the case with me. And I really want to talk about this kind of phrase that you've coined a little bit called perceived danger pain. But for
Mhm.
those that are not really familiar with TMS and Sarno, can you give just kind of a 101 on TMS? What does it stand for? And then your perceived danger pain, like kind
Sure.
of in a scientific ish sort of a way.
Okay. So Dr. Sarno named it tension myositis syndrome. So tension, myo is muscle, syndrome. So he was saying initially when he first started, putting these concepts out there. So tension myositis syndrome, tension in the muscles, created the syndrome of pain. He later, after speaking with some psychologists and started getting a little bit more into that world, started assigning the blame on the repressed emotions and them bubbling up to the surface, and the brain saying, "Whoa, Dan can't handle that. Those emotions are dangerous, so let's distract him with something physical like pain." Uh, he later went on to call it tension myoneural, which was muscle and neurology because it affected nerves. There was nerve pain and things. And then he just blanket statement, the mind-body syndrome, because it was not easily classified to just muscles and nerves because there was all sorts of things, gastrointestinal, reflux, IBS, pelvic pains, bladder stuff, like you name it, virtually any type of symptoms that become persistent, chronic, oftentimes have a mind-body component. And even if it started with a legitimate infection, oftentimes the persistence of the symptoms years later is because the brain learned to keep the symptoms going due to the fear and attention given to them and the medical labels given and this belief that I'm broken and I've got these horrible medical labels assigned to me. And so now I am where I was the back pain guy, other people are the fibromyalgia person or the, interstitial cystitis person, or I've got pudendal neuralgia and I've got trigeminal neuralgia and I've got occipital migraines and right? All of these medical labels do is put a big stamp of here's how you're broken. And what if those labels are nothing more than a medical description of the symptoms and not a true disease underlying, right? Fibromyalgia, for example, if anybody's got it, please don't take offense, don't flip out, but fibromyalgia doesn't have an organic physiological cause. No blood test for it. They're saying they have it, but it's just grasping at straws, but there's no blood test for it. You can't see it on an MRI. And if you walk into a doctor's office and say, I just want to check up and tell me if I'm of good health, but you don't mention, all the different symptoms you've got, you'd most likely get a clean bill of health on a regular, annual checkup. So many of these things are invisible. So these labels are mostly meaningless. And unfortunately, if you know what this mind body stuff is and you've done assessments and said, this is what's going on for me, I strongly encourage all of you to drop the medical labels because with those labels comes along all of the fearful stuff you've ever been told or read. And you're carrying that around with you by using the label. So if you know it's, as Sarno called it, TMS, the mind body syndrome, or as I'm referring to it, perceived danger symptoms. I'll say symptoms because it's not just pain, or it's really a perceived danger response by the brain turning on an alarm, right? With me bending over. Hey, don't do that. Um, for anybody, there's all sorts of triggers, which are things that the brain has learned are the dangers. One of the common things that people find themselves doing is saying, all right, I've got these 16 triggers, which I have to avoid so I don't have these symptoms or the pains. And all identifying triggers does is shrink your world because the more you identify triggers as these are the problems, all you're doing is confirming those things are dangerous. So anytime we do them, the brain's going to go, hey, stop it. Right. So we don't want to identify triggers. What we want to do is teach the brain that those things are not actually dangerous. And I can get into a little bit later if you want as to how we do that. But
Yeah.
the overall concept is Sarno's TMS, tension myositis syndrome, the mind body syndrome. I've just termed it perceived danger pain because I think it describes right on the outside of the box what it is. If you said, if somebody said, why are you in pain? I get this thing that's called perceived danger pain versus the mind body syndrome. Which one are they going to be more inclined to guess what's going on or be able to figure it out? Right? TMS, what the heck is that? Right. But perceived danger pain means your brain's perceiving danger and therefore there's pain. But the word perceived already gives you the hint that, well, maybe it's not real pain, it's just perceived. And so I like that terminology. And fortunately, people in the community are picking up on that and using that language. And I've gotten a lot of feedback from the audience that says I like this acronym. I like this term. It makes sense because it explains what's going on as opposed to just some, TMS acronym. Again, no disrespect to Sarno, but if we can explain things better and more clearly, we should.
Of course.
That's really what yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm really focused on doing is simplifying a complex process.
Yeah, because what I think what your work is all about, from just my knowledge of it so far, I've been following for quite a while and diving into your videos, is that you try to not overcomplicate things because it's like we're trying to, and I don't want to say unwind or rewire, but we're trying to just make things simple because I think we've overcomplicated what it means to quote unquote get better. And you said something to me this week. it, you said if someone doesn't understand where symptoms come from and how they originate, they are never going to be able to become pain free, or it's going to be very difficult for them to become
Let's
pain
say
free.
difficult. I don't
Yeah,
like the
yeah. I
never
don't like
word.
I don't like the never either because miracles happen and things do happen. So, but I mean it's difficult, right, to become pain free if you're not really um, in very good understanding of how this originates in the first place. But I still think that it is really hard for a lot of people to put it together that the pain that they're having in their hip, their foot, their knee, their neck, their stomach is starting somewhere else besides the place that they're feeling the pain. I just think that that's a very, very difficult concept, especially when they're having the doctor tell them that that's where the pain's coming from. They've
Sure.
got the label, they've got all the things. So, and it just becomes this huge cycle, right? So,
Mhm.
there is so much resistance, I think, even if it sounds like a great concept, I think that like to take that next step in many ways is really difficult for people because, it might sound great. And then they like have a conversation like you were just talking about, oh, what's going on with you? What's wrong with you? And the natural tendency is to just go back to the label, right? Because it's easy for the listener to understand. It's easier for the family member to understand. And you don't sound cuckoo, because to a lot of people this sounds really outside of the box. And here's the thing, it is, but really it's not, because this is actually really the way that the brain and the body works.
Yep. And that's what I teach all the time is, you know, we want to understand how the brain, the body, the nervous system, how pain works, conscious, subconscious, perception of danger is the cause. Because once we understand the framework of how the system works, we can stay within that framework and go, okay, well, if it's based on the perception of danger, then what's the most straightforward way of alleviating that danger?
Yeah.
Accurate knowledge and safety messages, period. We don't need all of these rounds of brain rewiring and affirmations for an hour a day and meditation for another hour and somatic tracking and, the 42 different protocols for how to, you know, uh, train your vagus nerve and your amygdala and rewire your brain. Because to me, that's overcomplicating this entire process. Um, and I'll just ask you,
Yeah.
when in your life prior to learning about all this stuff, did you ever have to think about brain wiring and rewiring?
Yeah, no, I
Never.
didn't. Yeah,
You
never.
learned math, algebra, whatever it was. Did you have to think about, all right, now how do I wire that in my brain?
Mm-mm.
Let me make sure that I do the repetitions to wire it. No, you just studied what you did.
Right.
And so I think if we give the brain, which is this miracle computer in our heads, if we give the brain accurate information, the right information consistently, it'll wire itself. It'll rewire itself. It'll stop sending the pain signals. Because there's a lot of belief that, well, I've had pain for 5 years, so those neural circuits are really, entrenched. So it's going to take me a long time to unwire them. Not really. Not really. And, people are like, oh, my pain's 24/7. Like, okay, do you sleep? Yeah. Okay, then it's not 24/7. It's off when you're sleeping because if it were on, you wouldn't be able to sleep, right? So the brain knows, oh, they're asleep. There's no thought, there's no worry, there's no catastrophic thinking, there's no being careful and avoiding it. They're asleep, so we can turn it off. And then when they wake up and go, oh no, how bad's today going to be? The brain goes, oh, let me show you,
Ugh,
right? Not in a mean,
that's
not in a, nasty way. The brain is really just trying to keep us safe, but it's operating on the information we give it. Give it the right information consistently, the brain will turn off these signals, and I see it all the time.
yeah, it really is. It's operating off of misinformation. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not bad. It's doing exactly what it is designed to do, but the information is just like, I don't want to say bad, but it's just not
incorrect.
correct. It's
Yeah,
incorrect. Yeah.
it's mis
It's
like so the
misinformation.
perceived danger is a misperception,
Yeah. Yeah. And I
right?
love the
So
example you said about sleep. I love that because I think that that really gets people to think, right? If you're in bed and you're sleeping and that pain is not there, even if you mildly wake up and that pain is not there, right? You're kind of in and out of consciousness, and you're not really feeling anything. That's really notable because it's really showing that it is not coming from the place, it's coming from the brain. And also you said something earlier just about the knowledge of everything, and it's just, if we understand the framework, I think that's what you said. If we understand the framework and we operate from that place, I mean, for me, I'm just brought to the more I understand the framework and what's really taking place in the body and in my brain, the fear just drops so significantly. And that's something I've
without
seen in my life. Yeah. And you and I have discussed this, but I've seen that so much, not entirely, right? Because there's a lot going on still in the subconscious realm over here, like everyone else. But I have seen the flares less scary on a conscious level and all of that, and that's because I've started to really understand the body and how it works. And so I think, the misinformation coming from the world has really hurt us so much in terms of healing.
yeah, and doctors are doing their best.
Yeah, yeah,
They're trained to be mechanics of the human body.
right.
We got to fix it with pharma, surgery, injections, physical treatments, and physical therapy, chiropractic, you name it. And there's a suite of treatments for most of the symptoms that we come across all the time. Um, but if they're not working, we got to really ask the question, why? Maybe it's not the body. How can a treatment to the body fix something if it's a brain turning on an alarm system incorrectly?
Yeah.
You can't fix a body. You can't fix pain that's coming from the brain by treating the body. It just has no chance of working. Um, I had a thought and I kind of lost it,
No,
but
that's okay. I think I was going to ask this because I know you talk about this a lot. And I think that this is, from what I understand, the number one question that you receive from people all across the world, which is, does this apply to me? People are confused, and I think they're confused because it sounds like it could be, but they're not really sure, and or they're going, but I have a real problem though. You know what I mean? Like, Dan, I have a real problem. And like I have my
um,
x-rays in front of me and my MRI and I have my CT and or I have, whatever it is, right? It could be even internal, like an autoimmune disorder. This is real, but also this sounds like it could also kind of be, and I'm not really sure. So what do you say to that?
the current doctors, there's a guy, Dr. Howard Schubner,
Mm-hmm.
who's kind of picked up the mantle from Dr. Sarno.
Yeah,
Um, and I love Dr. Schubner. He's great.
I do
He's
too.
so kind and humble, and he runs practitioner training. He's really doing the best to get the word out there at a medical level.
Yeah.
Um, he's got a rule of thumb, and I follow it. If you're dealing with symptoms, his suggestion is let's rule out significant life-threatening issues: cardiac, respiratory,
Mm.
stroke, serious infection, right? Tumors, right? Cancers. Let's rule out significant life-threatening things. If you can't breathe, go to the hospital, right?
Yeah.
You have chest pain, your heart's like, all sorts of pain, go to the hospital. Do not just assume everything is mind body. That's a mistake. We don't want to do that. We want to rule out the significant. Now, there's a lot of people in this space that say rule out the structural. Well, that's a booby trap, because if you go to the doctor and say, I need to rule out the structural, they'll go, look at your MRI. You've got this. That's structural. And then people come back to me and go, it's structural. So this doesn't apply. You told me to rule out the structural. No, I told you to rule out life threatening. Because once we know that it's not a significant life ending scenario, then we can start to say, how are the symptoms behaving?
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say the
How are
symptoms
the symptoms
behaving.
behaving?
Yep.
And there are assessments that were created as a result of the work of these brilliant doctors. So Dan didn't create these assessments and questions, but they're modeled on the work of these doctors who use it to diagnose their medical patients. So yes, I'm a coach, but I'm not inventing the the assessment to figure out, does this apply to me, which was your question.
Hmm.
So pain can behave certain ways, right? I have people that go, yeah, I don't feel bad at all in the morning, but man, by 12 noon, it comes on hard.
Mm.
So how's your body not, if it was physical, how is that possible? Right? Or I hurt really bad in the morning, but then by nighttime, I'm fine. My explanation for that is, you wake up in the morning, your brain goes, holy crap, how bad's today going to be? Fear, 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 pain, pain, pain. But as you get closer and closer to bedtime, the brain's going, we're going to make it. We're going to make it through the day. And what happens? Oftentimes the pain settles down. So there's all sorts of criteria. I'll just, instead of trying to run through it here on this session, uh, is this TMS.com. And if you want to use my terminology, is this PDP.com. And on that page, it's kind of like how to figure out if this applies to me, really. There's a pain test. If you don't have pain, substitute your symptom for the word pain. Questions apply. And then there's also on that page about 20 questions. And if you even answer one of them as true,
Mm.
it's mind body,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes bilateral. I had a pain on my left elbow and I thought I had a bad left elbow, but now my right elbow hurts too. Well, it's not likely that you're going to hurt both elbows at the same time unless you had a fall,
Mm.
which most people don't have. I think it was cool. One of my group coaching clients mentioned it a week or two ago. He goes, put your symptoms through the mommy test,
Mm.
right? Mommy, my knee hurts. Did you fall? No. That is probably fine. You keep fine, right?
Yeah.
If there's no physical precipitation to the pain, it's most likely TMS. Now, that's not always the case. People say, yeah, but I'm getting older. I got arthritis. I want to share this story. I have a new gentleman in my group who's 88 years old, just
Wow.
joined the group. He's 88 years old. He's there for fatigue.
Huh.
He has no chronic pain. He's 88 years old. The dude went to the beach. Um, he went out dancing for 2 hours the other night, salsa dancing. He's 88 years old.
Wow.
No chronic pain, which to me is kind of evidence. I know that's one scenario, just one anecdote, but aging is not supposed to hurt. But how many people do you know who say, I'm getting older, so I got these aches and pains when I wake up? Most likely TMS, but they're attributing it to age, which feeds the belief that age equals pain. So as I get older, I'm going to hurt more and more. What if it's not that? I mean, I talk to people who are 50. They're saying, oh, getting older,
Ugh.
you know, and I'm saying, no, I'm 58 and I feel better now than I did in my 30s and early 40s. Okay.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do sprints on the bicycle back there. I lift weights. Me and my son, after my divorce, we moved, me, my ex-wife, me and my son, and me again, like 5 times with our own U-Haul truck and loading the truck ourselves. Now, this is a dude who had 13 years of back pain, sciatica, and I'm carrying couches out the front door and loading it into a truck, dressers down a flight of stairs with my son, boxes of books. And my neighbors are like, "Are you crazy?" Nope, I'm not. There's nothing wrong with me, right? And so I feel better now at my age than I did in my 30s because back then I was the guy with back pain,
I
right?
love
And
that you've
so,
mentioned this. I really
because
do.
age shouldn't matter.
No, it
And we
shouldn't.
get sicker as we age? Sure. But it's usually not a result of the body just deteriorating.
Right.
I follow some people in the health space, and if we give the body the right foods and lack of toxins, we should live to be 100 easily. But
Easily.
yet, how many people are dying in their 60s and 70s because we're just eating the wrong stuff and treating our bodies wrong?
Yep.
We're not supposed to be dying as young as we are.
Yeah.
This guy literally believes, like, genetically, we have what it takes to live well over 100.
Yeah.
So,
Are you talking about Dave Asprey?
no, actually, this gentleman is Dr. Anthony Chafee.
Oh, that sounds familiar, but I don't think I follow him.
Yeah, he's an interesting dude. He's a surgeon, I think a neuroscientist, a neurosurgeon from Australia, but he's very big on the dietary world. And
Uh,
we'll leave that out because
yeah.
it's on one end of the spectrum that might be considered extreme, but
Yeah, I get it. I get it. But I do
you know,
love the
but
fact that you've touched on this because the rhetoric that you hear, even people who are in, I mean, I've actually spoken about this on my social media, even people who are in their 20s and 30s, the kind of words that they are using to describe themselves. Well, now I'm an old lady at 35 and I'm stiff when I get out of bed and I'm going, you need to stop that nonsense right now,
that's
but
because you're eating a pint of Ben and Jerry's, you're not exercising, and you polish it off with a bag of Cheetos.
exactly.
No wonder your
Exactly.
body feels like crap.
Even if you don't do that though, there's still
I know.
power in words,
I
and
agree.
there really is. And there's people, my mom, I've said this on a previous show, but my mom, who's in her mid 70s now, who has actually had a massive accident about a little over a year ago, accidentally fell and broke the top of her femur, and it resulted in a half hip replacement. She
Mhm.
gets very aggravated when she hears people around her say, "Oh, I'm just so old. Oh, I'm just," and she's going, "You need to stop that right now. This is so much of a mind game."
Exactly.
And I
Yeah.
love the fact that she has that mentality.
Yeah, it's funny. My mom is in an assisted living facility. And yes, these people are ranging from probably 80 through 98, right?
Mhm.
The average age is somewhere in there. And I asked her, I said, Mom, what's everybody's biggest worries? Well, clearly death, right? Getting closer to it. Second biggest worry is falls.
Mm,
I don't want to fall. Broke a hip, all that kind of stuff, right? I said, how many of those people that you eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner with every day, 80 some odd people in the building, how many of them are complaining about chronic pain? She goes, I don't think so.
huh.
I don't think so. They're talking about all the 6 medications that they're on and, you know, wearing diapers now and all these fun things that, the seniors have to deal with. But she said, no, I don't really hear people talking about chronic pain,
That's interesting and
and
notable.
I don't know if it was Sarno or somebody else, but they talked about the age of responsibility. And so, um, lots of kids, no problems. Some do. Lots of kids, no problems. And as we get slightly older, the, you know, the number of people who experience these type of mind-body syndromes goes up.
Yeah.
Once you start hitting around 65 or 70, it starts tapering down. Main difference is during that 20 to 70, those are the years of responsibility. You're raising kids, having to keep the roof over your head. You're having to pay the mortgage. You got a job, you got a career, you got stress, and the age of responsibility tends to go like that. And if I look at my demographics on my YouTube channel, that same
Mm-hmm.
arc is there. Now, maybe some people would argue, yeah, Dan, but how many 75-year-olds are on YouTube? So I get it. That's tails off, but the trends are fairly consistent. But to go back to your statement on the language, I tell people all the time, watch your language.
Yeah.
And if people, and I even in my group coaching, I say, we do not use language that comes out of a horror movie when we
Uh-huh.
describe our experience.
It's killing me.
Because, yeah, it's killing me,
Mm-hmm.
burning, ripping,
Mm-hmm.
tearing. Oh my God, I'm on fire. My legs are right.
Yep.
And I said, number one, I don't want you saying this stuff because the rest of the people in the group coaching don't want to hear it because fear is contagious, right? You hear,
Yes.
oh my God, I don't want that. I
Yeah.
said, but you're also scaring the crap out of yourself by
Without
using
knowing.
language, by using language that comes right out of a horror movie script.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? You're just continuing the brain perceiving danger, right? And
It,
so, yeah, watch your language. And I even take it to the next level. And it's not a unique Dan idea, but just stop talking about your symptoms, period. Stop talking about your symptoms. And I equate that to language.
mm,
And, there's a lot of talk, about neuroplasticity. Yes, the brain knows how to wire things. And if we start learning a language, let's say in high school, a couple of years of Spanish or French or whatever, the brain wires that language and it becomes easier. Recall becomes quicker because we've practiced it enough with what? Consistency,
yep.
so that the brain remembers it. Now, when I graduated high school, I met my 2-year requirement of Spanish. Did I have to do anything proactive to forget how to speak Spanish? Did I have to rewire my brain? Did I have to do anything? No, I just simply stopped talking about speaking Spanish, and I focused on college and the things I was learning there and playing music and whatever else I was doing. And my brain, all on its own, rewired it, let go of the Spanish. It said, oh, we're not doing this anymore. We don't need those connections anymore. And it rewired them to college courses or music or whatever I was doing. We don't have to think about rewiring. And there are programs that are like brain rewiring. Let's do, very expensive, very involved. You got to do
Yeah.
this for an hour a day. Otherwise, you're not going to get better and very rules structure based. All that does, in my opinion, is create more fear, more complexity. Your brain's not broken. There's nothing wrong with your brain or nervous system. There's nothing to fix there. It's just operating on misinformation and fear, but it's working flawlessly.
Yeah.
Like you said, our brains are doing exactly what they were made to do, which is keep us safe and alive.
Yep. Yep.
And when you teach, not heal, when you teach the brain, there's nothing to heal because I'm already okay. We've just got the false alarm going off. So here's what treating symptoms is like. You're in the kitchen, you're cooking, stovetop starts to smoke a little bit, and the smoke alarm goes off. Right? Treating the body for a symptom created in the brain is like the smoke alarm in the kitchen going off because the stovetop had something, butter got a little bit burnt, started smoking up. Now you're going to get out the fire extinguisher and spray the smoke detector. The smoke detector is just the alarm. So going for surgery because you got a knee that hurts. I know somebody my age who just got knee surgery, a knee replacement. And I said, well, was it structurally like just not supporting your weight? No, but it just hurt a lot. So they replaced the whole joint. Yeah. And it's like, wow, that seems a bit extreme, right? But most likely she had mind body stuff going on, perception of danger. Um, but yeah, treating the body. And here's the deal. People will say, yeah, Dan, but how come her knee surgery worked? How come her pain's gone if it was created by the brain? Where did fear level go? Oh, they took out the bad joint and put in a brand new titanium one that's perfect. Oh, that feels pretty safe. I got a brand new knee. I'm like the bionic man or woman. That's a huge dose of feeling safe, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with hip surgeries. There's a lot of them that are probably done when they're not needed. Now, with your mom, she broke the femur up near the hip.
Yep.
There's no fixing that
Nope.
unless you replace. My dad, same exact thing. He fell, he broke his hip right at the ball that goes into the socket
Yep.
right here. You can't set that and hope it'll heal. No options, right? There are many legitimate cases for surgeries, but the presence of pain is not one of them. And here's my statement on that. The presence of pain is a very unreliable indicator of the condition of the body.
I
The
love that.
presence of pain is a very unreliable indicator of the condition of the body. It is a very reliable indicator that the brain is perceiving danger.
Can you talk about this in terms of like comparison? So someone maybe person A brought x-rays or MRIs or whatever with no pain and they had no pain but the same condition as, person B. Can you speak to that for a second because I think this is really important for people to hear.
So I have a chart, and if you'd like, I can get it to you afterwards if you want to
Sure.
publish it anywhere or
Yeah.
whatever. But there's some statistics, and this is a chart. And I'll see, you know what? I might be able to post it in the chat. That won't work in the recording. The people won't see it, but perhaps even just for you to see it as we're speaking.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you see that?
Yep.
If you open up the chat?
Wait, hold on one sec. Actually, my
Yeah. So
chat
basically, that's
my
a
chat's
chart
not
of
working right
people.
now. Huh.
I'm sorry?
My chat is not coming up right now
All
for
right.
some
Don't worry
reason.
about it. I'll walk you through it.
Okay, cool.
This is a chart showing percentages based on age of varying spinal conditions in people who are asymptomatic, which means no pain, no symptoms. So, for example, and I'm going to pull it up here,
Okay. I
disc
could publish this.
degeneration.
There you go. That's a big one.
Disc degeneration. At 40 years old, 68% of people with no pain have disc degeneration. 50% of people 40 years old, disc bulges. 33% of people with no pain have herniations, right? At my age, I'm almost 60. Disc degeneration. 88% of people with no pain have degeneration in their discs. Disc bulges, 69%. Disc herniations, 38%. So if you have an MRI and you're going, look, but I've got a bulge. I'll go, yeah. How old are you? 60. Okay. So 36% of people with no pain have the same bulge you do. What's your proof that your bulge is causing your pain? What's your proof? Well, the MRI. No, it's not, because lots of people with the same MRI have no pain. So that's just an innocent bystander. Dr. Sarno used to call it the gray hair of the spine.
Mm-hmm.
This is normal signs of aging, but it's not supposed to hurt, right? And I know people specifically who had some pain, went to the doctor, were told you've got a bulge and, two bulges and a herniation, and immediately their pain got twice as
Worse.
bad.
Yeah.
What changed? The fear. Oh no, I'm busted. And that's when the doctors go, you better stop going to the gym. Probably shouldn't run. Bend at the knees, not at the hips. I mean, I remember dropping a pen on the floor and having to go like this to get it as opposed to bending over, right? And so the medical world is very good at looking at the actual condition of the body. That's all an MRI is. It's a snapshot of the body as you lay prone in this little tiny tube, right? But how do we, people are like, well, there's a compressed nerve. Yeah, maybe while you're like this, but what about while you're walking or bending or moving or sitting on? How do we know that what looks to be a compressed nerve is actually what's causing the pain?
You don't.
The way to know isn't by looking at your MRI. Did you rule out life-threatening stuff? If so, perfect. Now let's move on and see how your symptoms are behaving. Is this PDP.com? Go through the assessments. I mean, if you want, I can pull it up on my screen and just give you some examples of some of these questions.
Sure, if you want
All
to.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I don't have a problem with that.
I have so many. I'm thinking not only about my own experiences, but also people around me, and uh, just how much this applies and how it really is so challenging, I
Yeah.
think, to the brain. It's just a completely new thought process of how to look at the body and how it's operating. But I think that the what you're saying is that this is very potentially just the normal aging process, and we're taking that and we're going, okay, the, but this is actually where pain is coming from though, but it's not. It's just it's fooling us a bit.
Yeah, Dr. Schubner says all pain comes from the brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's an example of how we can have pain without injury and we can have
Yes.
injury without pain.
Yeah.
So pain without injury, you ever touch a hot stove? Of course, right? By accident. Ow, right? What happened? And you look and you're like, oh, whew, good, I'm not burnt, right? No blisters, no, I'm not burnt. So why did it hurt? It was a warning signal. It was your
Yeah.
brain going, hey, dummy, you got your finger on the stove, get it off. And then a second later, the minute we have, the second we take our hand off the stove, where's the pain? It's gone already. It's a very effective warning signal, but it can get stuck on if the brain perceives that we've got a problem. Um,
I like that. Stuck
we can
on.
have injury without pain, right? There's Dr. Schubner uses it in some of his presentations. Shows a guy literally who, with a nail gun shot a nail through his two fingers.
I heard him tell the story. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
fascinating.
a nail got through the flesh of his two fingers. Now this guy was a hardened, contractor, has been doing work on houses, building homes, all this stuff for decades. And what did this guy do? He went, hey guys, I'll be back. I got to go get this taken care of. He walks in. They're like, oh my goodness. All right, hold on, hold on. You need some pain meds? He's like, nah, whatever. Pull it out, stitch me up. I got to go back to work. No pain, real injury. And then there's also that story of the construction worker who jumped off the scaffolding and the nail went through his boot, right?
Yep. Yep.
Freaking out in pain. Morphine couldn't touch it. They cut his boot off and it was between his toes. No injury, but sky high pain, right? So pain is not a reliable indicator of the condition of your body. Symptoms are not even a reliable indicator of the condition of your body. Let's say you got dizziness, vertigo, tingling, weakness, numbness, whatever it may be. I've got neuropathy. I've got whatever, you know. It's not necessarily a reliable indicator of the condition of the body. Can there be things that create that? Yeah, certainly type 1 diabetics who have been diabetic most of their lives, they can get, neuropathy in their feet, and there's some legitimate disease-based processes, but the vast majority of chronic symptoms and pain are created by a brain misperceiving a danger that's not really there. And let's be very, very clear, the brain is not messing with us or tricking us. The
Yep.
brain is simply doing its job, safety and survival. It's been doing it since we were conceived. It'll do it until the day we pass away. But it's just going to operate on the information we have. So my job, your job, is to share the information so people can go, wait a minute, you mean I'm not really broken? Which is evident by the fact that 13 years of back pain went away and I've loaded trucks and spent 8 hours sitting in a kayak and have no physical limitations at all in my upper 50s. But from early 30s to mid 40s, late 40s, I couldn't do anything.
I think it's important too that we highlight the fact that years don't matter, right? You could be in pain for 30 plus years or 40 plus years, and it's only because this mindset shift and this work, consistent work, has not happened yet. Like the duration of pain does not indicate that you cannot get and feel better, I should say. Not necessarily
For
get better,
sure.
but feel better. Yeah.
Yeah, I just did a video um, recently. What's it called? Nothing else worked. What if this doesn't either? That
Mm.
was today's video.
Oh, that was today's.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out.
So nothing else worked. What if this doesn't either? I'm saying it will. People are like, yeah, but I've been doing this for 5 months or 5 years and it hasn't worked yet. Okay. Just means you haven't convinced your brain that you're safe yet. So
Mm.
what's your fear level? What's your attention? What's your despair, your frustration, your anger that you've got these symptoms? Oh, it's really high. Okay. Well, that strategy is not working. Time to make a shift and say, let me try a different approach, one that I'm less concerned about this stuff.
Yeah.
Because if you've done your homework and you understand what causes symptoms in the first place, you've done the assessments and you know that this applies to me and that you're really not broken, what are you afraid of? The pain, Dan, the pain, it's so horrible. I know, but it's a false alarm. If you know that your kitchen is not on fire because you're in the kitchen, and you realize that you turn off the stove and nothing's on fire, how afraid of you, how afraid of the smoke alarm are you when it's beeping? You're
Yeah.
not, because you're like, oh, well, let me open a window and air things out. You're not afraid of this false alarm. The vast majority of chronic symptoms and pain are false alarms. It's our job to say, hey, smoke alarm. There's no fire. We checked.
Yeah.
I know it sounds overly simplistic, but it's really how this stuff works. It's hard as heck, but the concepts are simple.
Yeah. Well, I
Safety is
think
the solution to perceived danger.
we have overcomplicated a lot when it comes to health in general. And I want to make a just a quick, like, just to confirm for people if they're listening, because we are using the term pain a lot. But,
It's other symptoms too.
yes, there's really is other symptoms. And, if someone were to say, well, I have scoliosis as an example, like I have scoliosis and it's, I don't have pain, but I have like tightness. I have tightness when I wake up in the morning. And then, it's not until I put heat on it that it kind of loosens up. And then if I'm on my feet a lot cooking dinner, then the tightness comes back. This can also very much apply, and TMS or perceived
Mhm.
danger can also very much fit in this scenario too. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. And I'll just run through a bunch of stuff that is also created by a brain perceiving danger.
Please.
Obviously, all the various pains that we've got, back, pelvic, headaches, but digestive issues, pain, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, food sensitivities, chemical sensitivities. Anxiety is just another symptom of a brain perceiving danger. Brain fog, derealization, depersonalization, tinnitus, ringing in the ear, right? Um, Dizziness, vertigo, fast heart rate, heart palpitations, sometimes even skin issues. Now, those are, uh, many of the common diagnoses: fibro, complex regional pain syndrome, IBS, pudendal neuralgia, pinched nerve, whiplash, carpal tunnel, trigeminal neuralgia, CFS, long COVID, interstitial cystitis, various neuropathies, plantar fasciitis, tendinitis, POTS, sciatica, spinal stenosis, spondylolisthesis,
Mm.
degenerative disc disease, arthritis, osteoarthritis. These are all common diagnoses and common symptoms. People are getting better from all this stuff with the mind body approach, teaching the brain that those are medical labels. They may be a condition of the body, but the condition of the body is not necessarily what's going on. And if you want, I'll go through some of those questions about, um, what causes symptoms.
I would love you to.
Or no, not what causes symptoms, but how to
How
tell
to tell
whether
the
or not.
assessment. Hmm.
Yeah, so some of the questions on the assessment. Do the symptoms begin without a physical precipitation, meaning the mommy test? My knee hurts. Did you bang it? No. Then it's probably okay, right? No physical precipitation. Symptoms persist after an injury has healed. In other words, typical injuries are healed in 3 to 6 months. If you're hurting 3 years later, your body's already healed a long time ago. Symptoms are distributed in a pattern that's symmetric, right?
Mm.
Both sides of the body. Well, when do we injure ourselves equally on both sides of the body? Not too often. Symptoms occur on one whole side of the body or on one half of the face, head or torso, but not the other. Symptoms spread over time to different areas of the body. So you have one pain now, you got a new part, a new part. Sometimes the more symptoms we have, Vanessa, the more likely it is that the brain's just perceiving danger.
Mm.
Because the more panicked we get, the more the brain goes on high alert, hypervigilant, always looking out for danger. Oh, but what about that? Oh, but what about that? And as we freak out, people go from one symptom to many,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The more symptoms you have, the more likely it's all mind body. Because, and I tell people point blank in the group coaching, I said, you're 45. There's no way your body's falling apart in all those different ways at your age, you know? And I know some of these people by working with them, and I'm like, you eat a healthy diet, you move your body when you can, you're not 600 pounds laying on the couch, right? Your body's not falling apart in all these ways. It's just not. It's all mind body. Um, yeah, have a quality of tingling, electric, burning, numb, hot or cold. These are symptoms that aren't generally injury symptoms. You know, symptoms shift from one location of the body to another.
That's a big one.
They're more or less depending on the time of day. We talked about that earlier, morning, night, whatever. Symptoms occur after, but not during an activity or exercise. Some people say, I go to the gym, I feel fine, but like, boy, that night, I sure pay for it. Maybe I did too much. No, it's just mind body, the brain going,
Mm.
the mind body, the brain going, I think you did too much.
Hmm.
Or the brain senses normal muscle fatigue or soreness from the workout and it overreacts to it,
Yeah,
turns
I was
up
gonna say
symptoms.
it's overreacting. It's oversensitive
Yeah.
almost. Yeah.
So other things, symptoms occur when one thinks about them or when someone asks about them. You ever have your
Mm.
symptoms jump when you do that? Symptoms occur when stress increases or one thinks about stressful situations. Just had somebody today saying, well, what about travel? I'm nervous about travel. What if my symptoms get bad? And sure enough, worrying about travel, their symptoms are getting worse before they even travel,
Yeah.
right? That's more evidence of mind body. Symptoms are minimal or non-existent when they're engaged and joyful or in distracting activities, such as I'm on vacation or I'm hanging out with a couple of friends. And you know what? I didn't really notice my symptoms, but boy, once I got home, they came back. More evidence that it's, the brain creating it. Um, Symptoms are minimal or non-existent after some kind of therapy, such as massage, chiropractic, Reiki, acupuncture. Why? Because oftentimes those things are a message of safety. Lower the fear, in the kind hands of a caring practitioner, right? That can make us feel better, but it's temporary.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of things. And if you want to dig into more of this stuff, is this pdp.com? And all of these questions are there. You can go through these assessments, and guess what? If even just one of these comes up true,
Resonates. Yeah.
that's what it is. It's the brain. Your body's fine because these things can't happen. Like, do the analysis. If symptoms move from this side to the other, well, if I had a bad elbow, how come my left elbow stopped hurting? My right elbow started hurting. Did this elbow get bad? And now it moved back a week later?
Hmm.
Just not possible if it's a body. So these assessments are really what will give you the confidence if you choose to accept them.
Yeah.
Um, but you got to do the assessment. And if it tells you it's TMS, it's TMS. If it's perceived danger pain, that's what it is. Because people will be like, your assessment says it's the brain. But Dan, it feels so real. It feels structural. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Pain is real. Symptoms are real. The dizziness is real. The whatever is real. The IBS, the loose stools, it's all real. But it's created by a brain that's perceiving danger. Anxiety, it's just another symptom of a brain perceiving danger. So
Well,
I'm on a ramble and we're going long here.
no,
I
I
don't
love
mind.
it.
I don't have a time
I
limit.
don't either. I don't
I
either.
don't
I
want
love it.
I don't want to shut this down,
No,
but I
I
don't
don't
want
want you
to
to. I
go
don't
too
want you
long.
to. No, it's fine and it's valuable and I want people to hear it. What
Cool.
would you say to somebody who has weakness or atrophy?
Those are two different things.
Yeah, they are. I'm also sort of
Weakness,
raising my hand here, so I just
you get it. So weakness can be created by the brain. Atrophy is when the muscles shrink. They're not necessarily related.
okay.
Here's an example of People are like, yeah, but I haven't moved my body a lot. My muscles have gotten smaller. I
Hmm.
can see it. I know it. I saw a picture of myself in a bathing suit from 5 years ago, and now I look in the mirror and my leg is thinner. Okay, that's not supposed to hurt, though,
Mm.
right? Example, extreme example, but it's a valid example. Has anybody ever seen pictures of somebody who is severely anorexic? They have no muscle tone. They're walking skeletons. They don't have chronic pain, but they're still able to move. They're not strong by any means, but they're still able to move, walk, climb stairs, do all sorts of stuff. And they've got like zero muscle tone. Another example, my father-in-law, um, he had polio as a kid, and he walked with a severe hunch and a limp, and his one leg was the size of my arm, and his other leg was normal size. He died at 88 years old. He never had chronic pain,
Wow.
but he walked with such a hunch and it was always crooked, everything. He never hurt because he wasn't afraid of it. He was like, oh, that's polio, whatever. And this is a guy who worked until I think he was 78.
Wow.
And he was 70 when he was still working for Sears, and he was climbing ladders, painting the huge pillars in the place, right?
Amazing.
He's a guy with polio.
Yeah.
So age doesn't hurt. Atrophied muscles shouldn't hurt. The fear that, oh my goodness, my leg is smaller and I need to build up strength so I don't have to hurt anymore. No, you may want to build up strength and get your muscle tone back, but you can do that after you're pain free.
Mm.
The belief that I have to fix this muscle so I can be pain free says I have a muscle problem, right? And I think I mentioned it to you when we were offline. Gentleman I just spoke to
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
with
Share this. I
focal
love her.
focal dystonia.
Yeah.
Focal dystonia for this gentleman, he was a professional guitar player, playing on the biggest stages with the biggest rock bands out there. For him, focal dystonia showed up in his fret hand, where he would play, the notes, and his last two fingers started to feel weaker, and then they would start to curl in, and he got to the point where he'd have to play like this with the fingers curled under. Um, it was all brain. They told
Wow.
him it was a nerve thing. He was this close to surgery. They were going to mess with the tunnels and this and that and try to fix the nerves and everything else. And it was weakness at first. Then it was lack of coordination. So here's a guy who used to be able to do all over the neck, and then he couldn't use those two fingers in that way. His dexterity was missing, and the weakness was there. And I have a success story. It'll be coming out shortly. What's his name? Yeah, Conrado is his name, and it'll be up, within the week.
Cool.
But literally, this guy almost lost his career because of this, what's called focal dystonia, which is kind of a BS label.
Yeah.
It's a medical label for lack of muscle control, some muscle cramping, but it ended up being all driven up here. And he got better, and now he's playing back to normal,
That's amazing. That's
right?
amazing.
So, weakness, atrophy, they can be two separate things because you can atrophy just by not working out. Like 5 years ago, I was working out a lot more and I took a number of years off. My muscles shrunk, right? And now I'm working out again. I'm trying to build them back up a little bit. Nothing hurt though. Atrophy doesn't hurt. It just means it shrinks. That's why nobody in my mom's nursing home or senior living facility hurt. None of them have good muscle tone, but
Yeah.
they're not hurting. So don't convince yourself that atrophy is supposed to hurt. Don't convince yourself that you have to fix the muscle before you can feel well. Teach the brain you're okay.
And to
Once you're okay,
piggyback
go ahead.
off of that, can you touch on what you shared with me offline also, which is that you have a belief that it could be very helpful to not see other practitioners when you're doing this mind body work because of how the brain perceives that practitioner or the work that that practitioner is doing, because this is something that I'm sort of wrestling with right now. Just, you know, kind of in a reassessment mode. And so I really want you to share that.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, I'll share what we talked about.
Please use me as an
Uh,
example. I'm
you were
open.
speaking about a person who works on your fascia, which is the muscle.
Correct.
And my words to you yesterday was, why, the fascia is tight, the muscles are tight, and they can feel it, they can touch it. A massage therapist or a fascia person can say, yep, muscles are tight. Let's work on the muscles. The key question I pose to you is, why are the muscles tight? Brain's perceiving danger.
Yeah.
And so you can work on the muscles all you want, and it might feel better. Like with me, I would go to the chiropractor and I'd walk out a little straighter up and feel a little bit looser. But like by the time I got home, 30 minutes later, I was back tight again, twisting. And I was like, all right, so I'm fixing the symptom. Problem, meaning the root cause was never addressed. So it would just go back to whatever symptom it was. So the reason to possibly reconsider, I will never tell anybody what to do,
Sure.
but I would suggest reconsider the practitioners you're going to see. Are they creating safety or perpetuating this belief that there's a body problem? Because if you know what caused the symptoms and you've done the assessments and it's a brain created symptom or pain, then why do you keep on going back to the body workers?
Why not just go straight to the brain? Yeah. Could you do both?
It confuses the brain.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can,
Yeah.
you can. And I know you want me to say yes, you can,
I desperately want you to say yes, but I also
because
want you
you
to be
like your
honest.
fascia person and they're kind and they're loving and they make you feel good. Look, a lady in my group program, she um, had some pain and she would get out that tube of pain cream, rub it on her shoulder
Uh-huh.
10, 12 times a day.
Wow.
And I was like, might delay recovery. She's like, oh, but I need it. Like, do you? I said, all right, don't go cold turkey. Start weaning yourself off. All right, you did it 12 times yesterday. Do 10 today. Maybe 8 tomorrow. Maybe 6 the next day. And like wean yourself off. I heard from her, in one of the group programs or group calls a week or two later. She goes, yeah, Dan, I'm not using it anymore. My symptoms are no worse. They didn't get better, but they're no worse, which means all the cream was doing was convincing herself that she had a body problem. Similar story, a lady with pelvic pain. She would go to bed with a bag of ice and put it between her legs and go to sleep that way every single night. And I said to her, I said, it's like your security blanket. And I was like, well, what would happen if you didn't use it? Oh, I'd be terrified. Like, all right. So I didn't tell her what to do. I just said, you might want to consider. And she told me sometime later, she goes, I tried it one night and I tried it. I stopped using the ice. And for 3 days, symptoms were a little bit up. But after I kept at it, they came right back down. No worse off. And now she goes, I don't have to go to bed with a bag of ice that's condensating and, making my sheets and my pajamas wet. Right. And so now I don't have to deal with that. I'm no worse off because right. So it's not curative to stop the physical treatment, but it can perhaps make sure you're not delaying the recovery by saying every single night with a bag of ice, this is a body problem. It's a body problem, body problem. So the more you go to physical treatments, the more likely you are to have your brain say, you're telling me this is perceived danger, not a real problem. Then why the heck are you going to the fascia person all the time? And why are you putting a bag of ice between your legs? And let me just point out this. And I'm sticking with pain just because it's a common
Sure.
theme.
Sure.
Pain is really interesting. You can go to 7 different practitioners for pain. I got back pain. All right, so I went to general practitioner, muscle relaxers, rest. You go to a chiropractor, he's going to talk about maybe some massage, electronic stimulation, cracking you. You go to an acupuncturist, they're going to stick needles in you. You go to a physical therapist, they're going to do exercises and workouts. You go to a massage therapist, they're going to massage you. You go to an orthopedic doctor, what are they going to do? Possibly injections. Pain practitioners, injections or something else, maybe a TENS unit. Some people have devices that'll like electronically stimulate the nerves permanently. How is it that you can show up with one symptom to 7 different practitioners and get 7 different treatments?
Hmm. That's a good question.
Is it possible that none of those treatments are actually a cure and they're just applying the treatment that they're taught in their appropriate degree of medical school?
And maybe then your brain associates safety with that treatment, and then that safety is actually what's creating the healing or the feeling better, and not the actual treatment itself.
Could be. Yeah, no, I had an experience. I was at a marketing workshop years ago because I also had experience marketing in a e-commerce business. And I was there and I ran across this guy and he was the marketing director for a big chiropractic firm. He says they probably had 12 chiropractors in this big office. Big firm. And I was like, oh, we're probably not going to get along because here I am thinking this mind body stuff. We talked a little bit. It was a very cordial conversation. He goes, Dan, we're not as far off as you might think. So why is that? He goes, well, let me tell you about the chiropractic office I work for. He goes, there's one guy in there who by far gets better results than anybody else. Does he have magic hands? Does he crack the back magically? Does he do all that magically? No. He said, what this guy does is he's got the best tableside manner, and he is so convincing that what he is doing is going to help them that it actually helps them. What are we talking about? Safety messages.
Yeah.
This guy is exceptionally good at going, oh, that crack was perfect. You're going to feel great. So convincing, so trustworthy that everybody went, oh, you got it. Awesome. Say fear down, safety up. People feel better,
Yeah.
right? Is that placebo? No, it's accurate knowledge. It's when I say that, I mean it's safety messages. Fear down, safety up. Is that placebo? No, because what I'm doing isn't placebo. Wouldn't be a placebo if I'm pain free for 14 years,
Absolutely not. Right.
right?
That's so
No,
true.
it's how the system works. And if you teach the brain that your body's okay, which it is, then the pain can go away and stay away.
Speaking of that, as we wind down a little bit, can
Sure.
you just speak to I mean, people are probably, I can imagine that there's just a lot of thought going on, right, with listeners at this point, especially someone who has never heard of this work or never heard of TMS and so forth. So they're saying, okay, well, this sounds like this could be me. So how do I start creating consistent messages with safety? How do I get that accurate knowledge to start versus this misinformation that's been in there? Like it sounds great, but how do I do this? And how do I stay at it? And what am I looking at?
Okay. So you're setting me up for a pitch here, but for free, I have a series of videos from my archive of 1,700 of them. I have a series of videos, maybe 12, 15 videos. I forget the number in there, but it's called a fast start playlist on YouTube. And if you go to dansfaststart.com, it will automatically forward you to that playlist. Free, probably less than 2 hours worth of video content, but it's like a whole course in what's going on and what to do about it. Oh, sorry,
There's
those
your
gestures came up. Um, yeah, so what's going on and what to do about it. And those videos will walk any brand new person through it. And yes, I say the word pain a lot. I am pain-free you. I'm the pain guy, but I'm helping out countless symptoms.
Yeah.
So you can start watching the Fast Start playlist at dansfaststart.com. Now, if you want some evidence that this stuff is actually real and that this stuff actually works, painfreeyousuccess.com. And Vanessa's got my links, so she'll probably share them in the podcast and YouTube and all that. But painfreeyousuccess.com. As of this count, I've got like 62 full-length interviews on Zoom, like Vanessa and I are talking about. Um, Success stories, people who volunteered to say, I want to share my story.
Yeah. Yeah.
62. I'm
That's a
not
lot.
talking about 3 or 5. I mean 62. That's it's not trivial.
No.
And if you scroll through that list of the playlist of success stories, typically the symptoms that they overcame are listed in the title of the video or on the thumbnail or both. And you can see there's all sorts of symptoms. It's not just pain.
And that's not including all of the people that just come to you on the daily and talk about their reduction of pain and or symptoms and illness too. I mean, you're getting these messages just
Daily.
daily. Yeah, and so these success stories are just longer stories that people have volunteered to come on and have recorded so that
Yeah.
people can really hear the details.
Yeah. And not everybody's willing to get on video and do a
Right.
recording that's going to be put out to the world. They're like,
Exactly.
I don't want to do that. I
Right.
just had somebody today saying, yeah, my English isn't so great. I'm a little bit awkward. I want to prepare for it. So when I'm ready, I'll get in touch.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's awesome. And I do get messages. I think I have a notes folder on my computer that I'll just grab good YouTube comments and just plug it in there. And I swear it takes me like 10 minutes to scroll through the thing. Hundreds and hundreds of comments from YouTube, people saying, I'm feeling so much better.
Yeah. You do have a ton
So,
of comments and it because I've done your like about I don't know, I would say probably 5 videos in your fast start so far, maybe 6. And I was reading some of the comments. I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds per video of
sometimes, yeah.
yeah, and it's wild and it's just the relatability is there, for people. And there are people that have talked so much about because I was really getting into it yesterday. I was reading a ton of them. People just talked about the fact that they never thought that they would overcome what they've overcome, and they never they they thought that they were special. And and I told you that
Special kind of
offline.
broken.
Yeah, a special kind of broken. And I told you that when we were chatting, just off air. I said, I know I'm not special, right? I know that even though because you challenged me, you said why is it important that that you don't know, or why does you said why is it important that you find someone or someone that's had your unique circumstance? Because I told you that I don't know anyone personally that's had my unique situation or my situation. And I said, it's not anymore, but it was. It
Yeah.
was really ripping me apart because I felt so isolated and so alone, not really being able to relate to anyone. But the thing is that it doesn't matter because um, there's so many of us that have a version
Yeah.
of right or TMS or perceived danger, and
Hmm.
it doesn't matter if there's a relatability or not, but you're able to see that so many people with all of these different circumstances have all
Forget.
been able to have an alleviation. And
Yeah,
it's,
what's really interesting is to that exact point, I had somebody leave a comment today on one of my success stories for dizziness, persistent dizziness.
yeah.
The comment was, OMG, this is incredible. I'm not alone.
Wow. Yeah. See? Exactly.
So I understand the compelling desire
Yeah.
to find somebody with my symptoms. And that's what the success stories are all about.
Sure.
Not only to share, yes, these symptoms can be overcome, but also here's the mindset, and here's the knowledge, here's the way they viewed the world and started navigating the world differently and started teaching themselves I'm okay and how did they respond to the symptoms. So these are instructive too. They're inspirational, but they're also instructive. Some of them, not
Yeah.
all of them. Um, but yeah, if you can find your exact symptoms, wonderful, home run, because you'll know that's it. Even if you can't, that doesn't mean you won't get better. Do
Right.
the assessments. If it says it's mind body, that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what you can still get better. Be the first one to overcome this weird thing, like this guy, focal dystonia, the guitar player. He had
Yeah.
never seen a focal dystonia mind body success story on my channel or anybody else's. But
It
somebody
is.
pointed out, a buddy of his said, read the Dr. Sarno book. And he goes, yeah, I don't have pain, but holy cow, this probably applies. And he dug in, and by researching and searching for Sarno, he found some of my stuff. And between the Sarno and me, he got better. Saved his career. He was going on tour to like the Netherlands, like this summer.
Amazing. I
Cool
know
stuff.
it's definitely could be life changing. And I think the one thing that I want to say is if someone is questioning, if there's someone listening, which I guarantee there is. So I see you, friend. If you're listening and you think it sounds great, but I don't know. But and it sounds like it could be. Why wouldn't you, if you've been suffering, why wouldn't you just explore it? Ask yourself, what's holding you back from the potential of this actually working for you? And sit with that question. Really
I
sit
have
with
an
it.
answer for you.
Yeah, please.
People are so used to being disappointed by failed medical treatments. They go down all these rabbit holes and nothing's worked, nothing's worked, nothing's worked. And then they hear about this and they go, holy crap, maybe this is what's going on. But they're terrified of being disappointed again. So they keep this at arm's length and go, I don't know. I can't handle being disappointed again.
So
And
true.
right? And you've been there.
So
Many
true.
people have been there, and I hear it all the time. My answer to that is you're already disappointed.
It
You
can't
are.
go, yeah, it can't go
Right.
any
So
further
if you
down.
do this, and look, the video from today, which is literally nothing else worked, what if this doesn't either, is that exact topic.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's
What if
true.
this doesn't either? Then I'll be disappointed. You're already disappointed.
Yeah,
You got nothing to lose.
yeah, yeah.
You're right. You've tried all of the other stuff. And I even joked in there. I said, you've tried all the rest. You saved the best for last. This is your answer.
Yep,
You
yep.
know, some people have to beat their head against the medical wall enough times for them to go, holy crap, nothing worked.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And what's the
And
definition of insanity?
doing
Doing
the
the same
same
thing over and
thing.
over and over again, expecting a different result.
Yep.
How many times have you been to this fascia therapist?
Oh, I've seen her only in 2023. So, I started seeing her in the probably early spring or late winter of 2023. So,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, a few times a month. So, yeah, not super long and have come quite a ways with her, but and like I shared with you offline, she's very much into this as well. She has
Yeah.
acknowledged the mental and emotional component. I think that she would totally be on board with all of
Yeah.
this, or is on board, I should say, because she always wants me to keep that, to work
So,
on
and
that.
I'm gonna just play devil's advocate. Was it the warm and fuzzy caring practitioner that allowed your fear level to come down and your safety level to go up? And that is what has allowed you to do fairly well with her? Or was it the actual muscle work?
Hmm.
It's a good question to ask. I don't know
It
the answer to
is.
it.
It is a good question to ask. There's a part of me
Some
that
people
wants to
will
say
say there,
both.
yeah, some people will say there's a bottom-up approach.
Yeah.
Meaning, like I'm a top-down guy. I'm like, this is cognitive. Let's do this and shove it into the
Yeah.
subconscious,
Yeah, for
just through
sure.
brute repetition, you know? So I'm the cognitive guy. And there's a lot of other people who are like, well, but meditation and vagal nerve retraining and all these things. You're welcome to try all that stuff. I'm not dismissing it. I'm not saying it doesn't work. What I'm saying is that the things I am doing are working and that those other things weren't part of my solution. I tried meditation. I tried breath work. Neither of them were my solution. I tried journaling, doing the emotional stuff. That was not part of my solution. Just didn't work for me. Does it work for some? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm not saying those are bad practices, but it wasn't part of my solution. Therefore, in my opinion, it's not required. Therefore, I won't teach something that didn't work for me just because it's in vogue.
Yeah. I want
right?
to speak to journaling really quick before we wrap, which is it doesn't work for me either, and I think part of that is because I almost felt like it re-traumatizes me a little bit, and it's and I understand the whole
That's the
let's get
risk.
it down. Yeah, let's get it down on paper. Let's get it out of the body. I completely understand that and I'm not knocking it, but I think sometimes with someone who has a really chronic issue, like talking about it continue like whether it's on paper or to someone else or in your mind is not you're kind of almost going in circles. And so for me personally, I'm a writer and a speaker. But for me personally, talking, writing about the problem has not helped the problem.
Sure.
Yeah. That's just my experience.
Well, it's like the Spanish analogy I gave you earlier.
Right, right.
The Spanish language disappeared on its own because I stopped speaking Spanish. Now, let's say I'm 58 years old and I spoke Spanish every day for the past 45 years or so, since high school. I've got no right to be angry that I still know how to speak Spanish. All right. Put that into the pain chronic symptom world. If you're talking about your symptoms all day, every day, or at least a lot, and now 6 months from now, you're like, why do I still have symptoms? Because you're using those neural pathways. You're keeping them connected because you are making it important. Your brain will remember the things that you instruct the brain are important. So if you
Mm.
want the brain to let go of the symptoms, you have to show the brain, not just tell it, hey, brain, turn that off, but show it through your focus, through your attention, through your fear levels, through your what am I really engaged in? Am I engaged in life or am I trying to fix my symptoms all day long because I'm doing these 2 hours of practices a day? And when I'm not doing those, I'm actually binging on videos for the next 4 hours. And all you're doing is saying, this is important. And your brain's going, got it. Well, we got it. So if you want the brain to let it go, we have to intentionally, calmly, reassuringly say, actually, that's not a problem. I've done my homework. I know what causes symptoms. I know it applies to me. There's a solution. I've read, I've seen the success stories. I read the comments, and I know I can do this. Well, Dan, I'm a special kind of anxious. So I'm so scared and it feels so real. Yep. Listen to the success stories because many of these people didn't want to be on the planet,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And they were bedridden and eating three foods and hadn't driven a car in 7 years and all those things. So if they can do it, you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not some special kind of broken. You're special. You're wonderful. We love you, but you're not a special kind of broken that you're behind hope. I think everybody can, at minimum, improve the quality of their life with this work. I'm eternally optimistic that we can all get symptom free. I don't think this is just an improvement. We're not trying to manage pain or symptoms. No, I think we can eliminate them. But at minimum, you're going to start to feel better mentally and emotionally. And even if that's the case, boy, isn't that a victory.
I was going to
Because
say,
isn't that the mental and the emotional where the suffering happens?
absolutely. That
So
is that is the hardest part. The physical is hard, but if you really look at it from a different lens,
suffering.
it's the suffering that is the real hard part, right? That's
So here's another example. Everybody probably knows, Uncle Charlie, who's a contractor or a construction guy, and he's lived with back pain his entire life. Yep. And he'll come home after work and be like, sit in his recliner, and, oh God, what a tough day. My back's killing me. But he doesn't suffer it.
mm,
He lives with it. He's accepted it. Right. Now, these guys could probably get better. Bad example, but they could probably get better. Um, but some people, they just kind of live with it. Like my father-in-law, he didn't suffer with polio. He just was like, that's what it is. No pain.
yeah.
So anyway,
We could go on and on. We really
no,
could.
I'm sure we could.
We could. We could.
The
But
key is dive in,
yeah.
utilize some of the resources. Vanessa will make them available.
Yep.
Um, Open your mind to the possibility. And as we were talking about before, there's absolutely nothing to lose by at least investigating this stuff,
Yeah.
learning more about it. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard the story of people getting Dr. Sarno's book and going, this is bullshit, and throwing it across the room. Only later, a year and a half later, to come back to it because nothing else was working.
Right.
And then they were able to achieve results.
Yeah.
Um, we can't force this on anybody. If you're resistant to it, by all means, make your own decisions. Even my own family members, my nephew had really tough neck pain for about 6 months. Lots of stuff going on in his life. A move, temporary move to Italy, getting engaged, his fiance coming to Italy, like stressful stuff. Maybe I won't have the job. Should I move here? Trying to get citizenship out, like stressful stuff. He had neck pain for about 6 months. And I was like, yeah, it's this stuff here. Read this. Wouldn't listen to me. My
Right.
sister's got neuropathy type of symptoms. She won't listen to me. My brother's got back pain. He's on board, but he doesn't do anything with it. He's like, so he knows what it is, but he's like not really doing the work of convincing himself he's safe.
Yeah. It's the
He's
awareness
halfway
versus
there.
the application thing,
He's
like we
halfway
talked about.
there, so he benefits to a degree because he
Yeah.
doesn't freak out as much. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, so it's very common.
It is. It
But you can't
is.
force it on anybody. And even my family members are like, what does Danny know? That's just my little brother Danny. You know.
Well, I don't think.
I'm just saying it's funny
Yeah,
how
it is. It
we
is.
want people to listen, but if they're not listening, we can't make them.
Well, we talked about that off air too, about planting seeds. And a lot of times someone will hear something and then they'll go back to, 6 months, like you said, 6 months later, a year later, 5 years later, even, because
Yeah,
nothing's worked.
that's what this is. We're
Yeah,
planting seeds.
that's exactly it. That's
We're Johnny
exactly
Appleseed.
it. Well, and I just want to say, this is this has really been something that even just in the last 24 hours or so, I have really been spending a lot of time thinking about in terms of how I can take a step forward because
Mm.
I wholeheartedly believe in this process and I have. But I'm sort of in that same area of like the head knowledge, but like the full application has not been there or present. So I just want to say thank you for everything that you're doing. Thank you for being so consistent in wanting to help others. Thank you for using your story and making it just yeah. It's like the mess becomes the message, right? It's cliche, but it's so true. And it's taken a lot of dedication from you on your end to just
Yeah.
keep going. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for just doing this, for taking the time out of your busy schedule, because I know you're super busy to be here with me and just to provide all of this information for people. It really, it's a gift and I appreciate it.
Yeah. So I will say that, and I've told some people who I'm close with in my life, I said, I don't think I have a choice anymore.
No.
This, I don't have a choice. This is what
Yep. This is
I
your
am
ministry.
compelled to do.
Yeah,
It's my calling. I I don't know.
it
I
is.
if I couldn't earn a dime doing this, I would still probably do it.
Yeah, I know. I
Right.
know. I know. It's a passion and when there's a fire that lights up underneath you, you just have to do that. You have to just do the thing, and I very much understand and I relate to that a lot.
Yeah.
So,
It is
uh,
funny because I think, and I'm like, if I weren't doing this, what would I be doing?
what
I'd
would you
be,
be doing? Nope, it's become your life, but there's
no,
so
it
much
is.
purpose to it. And, friends, like Dan said, I will have everything available for you. I will put all of his resources in the show notes, as I always do. Do not hesitate to reach out to Dan. He's available on social media. I will get those links for you also. If you're not sure where to go, of course, you can always reach out to me and I'll point you in the right direction. But it has been an
Yeah.
absolute pleasure.
Yeah. Vanessa has my website, and on there is a
Yes.
contact form so you can type a message.
Yep.
But if you do, just know that I get a couple dozen of them a day.
Yeah.
and I get overwhelmed. I've got weeks worth of messages I haven't gotten back to yet. It's
Be
just
patient.
overwhelming.
Be patient is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's not that I don't like you and I'm not going to get back to you, it's just that it takes a while.
Yeah, and that's understandable. That's
Right.
understandable. Well,
So, listen, I
again,
really appreciate it. As you can tell, I get a kick out of these conversations. I love
oh,
talking about it. I love sharing. I love teaching, finding the opportunities to make the right point so it
yeah.
sinks into the noggins out there, you know?
You're excellent at it. You're excellent at it. And it's been a joy to just have such a just a back and forth candid, almost non-planned in a way conversation about this because um yeah, it's something that's very close to my heart as you know, and I have a
Mhm.
feeling that you will be hearing from me I think in the near future. So again, I appreciate it so
Not a
much.
problem at all.
Have the
So
best day.
I think you're going
And
to do great. You're going to get
oh, thank you.
all through all your stuff. And if I can help you out in any way, you know where to find me.
I know. Thank you. I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much,
Awesome.
Dan. All right. Have a wonderful day.
All right. Take care.
You
See you,
too.
everybody.